Many people like cooking with music in the background. Does it actually make them more productive? Researcher Cervantes, whose brother owned a chain of Spanish-Mexican restaurants, once drew a random sample of 9 cooks who worked there. The Casa de Salsa franchise was famous for its open kitchens and live music. This allowed the kitchen staff as well as the guests to take in the atmosphere. Cervantes observed each cook once during the 2 peak hours of the day, between 7 and 9 p.m., and recorded how many food orders the cook completed. Meanwhile, musicians continuously livened up the atmosphere. They were of various sizes, from a solo marimba player via a small banda formation to a 10-man mariachi group, complete with violin, trumpet, vihuela, and guitarrón. I hope I pronounced all of those things correctly. So, one way to start off this story is to visualize the 2 variables and specifically how they relate to one another. This is called a scatterplot, as many of you will know. It shows 2 things at once. Each point in the graph is 1 cook, and we see to how many musicians they listened, as well as how many orders they completed. I sometimes forget what is on my slides, and then I just start talking. So that's the x-axis. The x-axis represents what we call the independent variable, the cause, at least the thing that we suspect is the cause in this story. And then on the y-axis, or in other words, the vertical axis, we see the dependent variable, the suspected effect. Can somebody tell me what we would now do if we wanted to get an impression of how these variables are related? Let's make this a bit interactive, shall we? Yes, Konstantinos?
We would probably try to find a correlation coefficient.
Yes.
For the 2 variables.
Yeah, you would. That's one of the things you could calculate. Yes, the correlation coefficient. That if I want to calculate that correlation coefficient, I first need to draw something in the graph. What is it that I should draw?
Probably a line that shows us kind of like the average, or
something like that. Yes, a line that shows us what is going on overall. A trend line, you might say. Statisticians refer to this thing as a line of best fit. There is a particular mathematical rule that we follow here to decide that this is the line that fits best through the point cloud. More on that at a later stage, but this is then our trend line. It should give us a visual impression of the association, because if you had to describe what you see, then you could say in general there's a positive trend. The more musicians are playing in the restaurant, the more productive the cook tends to become. It's just a tendency. It doesn't have to be the case for every individual, but at least it's the trend that we see in the data. The sample is extremely small, of course. As such, it is not very representative, but it makes the calculations that we're going to do up ahead more doable. And that is why we're stuck with this smaller sample size. Yeah, so the idea is that the relationship is stronger as the points are closer to the line, because then individual cooks are more inclined to conform to this trend that we see. And then the number of musicians is more predictive of how many orders the cook can complete. You can help yourself with that by drawing an ellipse around the cloud of points. That is just a introductory visual aid of sorts. When the ellipse is very elongated and narrow, then the trend is very strong. But the more you have something like a circle, the less of a relationship there is in the graph. You will then see that this correlation coefficient we have yet to discuss will be close to 0 when you have a circle, or pretty much like a circle. Those are the things I have to edit out. People don't like it if I drink too much during these sessions. Luckily, just water. Okay. So, it's important to note that there are 2 aspects of this relationship, this association. To sides of the same coin, you might say, and we use different statistics to describe each of them. What I'm talking about is the following two things. You need to distinguish the strength of the relationship on the one hand, and the appearance of the relationship on the other hand. The appearance is just a matter of how the regression line actually runs through the graph. So, in fact, by how much does the number of orders tend to increase as more musicians are playing in the Casa de Salsa location? That's one thing. And the other question is how much do individual cooks conform to this trend? So how close are the points generally to the regression line, to the trend line? But those are two different things. And the strength of the relationship is described with, as I said, with different statistics than the appearance. First, we're going to have a story about strength in the next video.